Hello everyone, I would like to present our recent work published in TVCG, evaluating 3D visual comparison techniques for change detection in virtual reality. Change detection typically involves comparing data from two types to identify changes. It has been used in various applications to help decision making. Although helpful, algorithmic change detection attains significantly lower accuracy compared to human detection. Therefore, human detection is still necessary. Human change detection has been widely studied in cognitive science. Most of studies focus on change blindness, where the change signal is disturbed and the human rely on memory only, causing the failure of detection. For example, in the right side image, the display alternates between the initial and the after scenes, with the brief blank image inserted between them. The blank image could disturb human attention to the change signal. However, this is opposite to practical usage, where the practical system need to maintain the signal of change and even make it be obvious. Studies in visual comparison focus on developing visualization techniques to identify differences, which is directly relevant to the change detection. As shown in this image, there are four main paradigms: juxtaposition, superposition, interchangeable, and explicit encoding. Each has pros and cons, and they are usually combined to form mixed paradigms. Please note that explicit encoding is excluded from our work, as it requires very accurate change detection algorithm. Traditional visual comparison techniques usually rely on flat 2D images, which are not always suitable for 3D things. Recent work has been used VR for visual comparison due to VR's immersive interaction at a real-life scales. Firstly, the BIMA system used the interchangeable paradigm to present different historical periods in the VR cave. Secondly, the word-in-video system is a juxtaposition approach that supports multi-word comparison. Lastly, a study proposed a mixed paradigm approach where the content of the magic lens is aligned with the user's perspective. Inspired by this work, we created three visual comparison techniques for change detection. The left side shows a prototype of three techniques, and the right side shows three techniques in the experiment. Some video of this technique will be displayed later. Detecting change often involves different perceptual challenges in practical usages. Firstly, the size of the changed objects could be varied, which requires the visual comparison techniques to be robust for various sizes of change. Secondly, the lighting between the initial thing and the current thing might not be identical, which requires the visual comparison techniques to be robust for various lighting conditions. Lastly, VR usually works with 3D reconstruction, and the drift cannot be avoided, so the initial thing and the current thing might not align perfectly. This study aims to propose three visual comparison techniques for the change detection and compare their effectiveness and usability in synthetic environments under different conditions. We have three research questions. The first, how is performance affected by different visual comparison techniques? Secondly, how is performance affected by different perceptual challenges? And lastly, regarding their different type of change, how is performance affected by different type of change? Next, I would like to talk about the setting of the perceptual challenges. Regarding size, the way we measure the size of an object is by calculating the ratio between the number of pixels occupied by this object and the number of all pixels in the field of view. The value for setting large size condition and the small size condition are listed here, and the corresponding example I show in the left. Next, please see the following video about three techniques on the small size condition. And in the big size condition. We used three different lightings to create two different lighting variations. The first one is direct sunlight versus no direct sunlight. The second one is direct sunlight versus indoor artificial light. The lighting parameters in our study are listed here. In the lighting variation 1, three techniques look like in the following. And here is in the lighting variation too. We set our large drift and small drift based on one 3D reconstruction assessment that using a practical laser scanner. The left image shows how the large drift and the small drift look like in our study. Here are the videos for 3 techniques on the small scene drift condition. And in the large scene drift condition. We conducted a user study with 39 participants, where each wore a VR headset and seated in the same location, and tested 108 pairs of scenes in total. There were 3 variables, 3 visual comparison techniques, 6 perceptual challenges, and 6 types of change. We used the Lardin square design, where each participant tested all 3 techniques, and each technique was fully tested across all combinations between perceptual challenges and the types of change. Regarding the testing sequence, each participant started with size condition, followed by lighting variation condition, and ending with drift condition. We also used random scene assignment with different object per scene to avoid the learning effects. We have 4 hypotheses. H1. None of the experimental variables will significantly affect change detection accuracy. H2. Visual comparison techniques will significantly affect the time to detect changes. H3. More challenging conditions, such as small size condition, both lighting variation and large scene drift, lead to longer detection time. H4. The absence of the change will likely require significantly more time to conform than when there's a change present. Regarding the performance results, firstly, I want to talk about the overall detection time. It's defined by the period from the start of the trial to the time that the change is localized. It reflects the speed of the searching pattern and the detection pattern. And visual comparison techniques had a significant effect. Specifically, sliding window was significantly slower than both the 3D slider and the switchback. 3D slider was significantly slower than the switchback. Next, the interaction between the techniques and the perceptual challenge had a significant effect. Specifically, sliding window was the slowest in most scenes. Switchback was only significantly faster than 3D slider in both drift conditions. Lastly, the interaction between the techniques and the type of change also had a significant effect. Specifically, sliding window was the slowest of all change types except translation change. Switchback was only significantly faster than 3D slider in translation and no change condition. Perceptual challenges had a significant effect, where large scene drift conditions was significantly slower than in the baseline condition and the small scene condition. The change types had a significant effect, where the no change condition was significantly longer than all of change condition. Rotation was significantly longer than all other rest type of change. Regarding the visible detection time, it's defined by when the change entered the participant's field of view and thus could be noticed until it was localized. It reflects the speed of the detection pattern. Firstly, visual comparison techniques had a significant effect. Specifically, sliding window was significantly slower than both the 3D slider and the switchback. 3D slider was significantly slower than switchback. Next, the interaction between the techniques and the perceptual challenges had a significant effect. Specifically, sliding window was the slowest in most scenes. Switchback was only significantly faster than 3D slider in both drift conditions. And lastly, the interaction between the techniques and the type of change had a significant effect. Specifically, sliding window was the slowest in rotation, and the switchback was only significantly faster than 3D slider in translation. Perceptual challenges had no significant effects, and the changing type had a significant effect, where rotation change was significantly longer than replacement change. And next, I would like to talk about the detection accuracy, and our results show that all fixed effects and their interaction effects are not significant. Let's talk about the questionnaire results. Regarding the workload, sliding window is the highest. However, there was no significant difference between the 3D slider and the switchback. Regarding the motion sickness, 3D slider had the lowest score, which was significantly lower than the sliding window but not significantly lower than switchback. Regarding the overall comparison questionnaires, sliding window was the lowest in most of the aspects. Please note that the 3D slider is the most recommended technique. After data analysis, H1 is fully accepted, as our model showed that there's no significant difference in the accuracy of 3 visual comparison technique. H2 is fully accepted, as type of visual comparison technique significantly impact both overall detection time and visible detection time. Specifically, switchback was the fastest in general but not in every condition. Sliding window was the slowest. 3D slider is in between but the varied method. H3 is only partially accepted, as only the large drift condition showed a significant effect. Interestingly, one primary difference between 3D slider and the switchback was observed on the drift condition. Lastly, H4 is fully accepted, as types of change significantly affect the detection time, with the no change condition taking longest. Another primary difference between 3D slider and the switchback was also observed on the no change condition and the translation change, which is switchback is also faster than 3D slider. Regarding the future work, there are several things we can do. Firstly, introducing multiple changes for each scene to access how visual comparison techniques scale in more complex scenarios. Secondly, reducing the number of experimental variables while increasing their granularity. Lastly, focusing on the effect of display medium on change detection performance.